Hey, you beautiful twin flames, and welcome back to Tarot for You 444. Today I'm going to be talking about a concept which I recently mentioned in the stages of the twin flame journey. So if you haven't checked out the video about the 14 stages of the twin flame journey, hop into the playlist and look under Twin Flames, the Real Phenomenon Explained, and that's where that should be. Okay, so when we're talking about the stages of the twin flame journey, one of the major stages that occurs is, of course, the separation, which we know to be true. But within that stage, we also have a trauma bond that can occur. And this is something that's rarely talked about on the twin flame journey. So today I'm bringing you a concept video which is all about the trauma bond. And I've explained it a little bit before, but today I want to just explain it a little bit better. So I've talked about Stockholm Syndrome. I'm going to go a little bit deeper than that. I'm going to really get you to understand what's happening within the trauma bond for your twin flame journey. But if you're not familiar with the Stockholm Syndrome, then we need to sort of bring that into light. So let's start from the very beginning. Let's start from the very beginning. It's a very good place to start, right? The first thing that happens is, of course, you meet your twin flame and you have that recognition phase, and from there it goes pretty much downhill, depending on how awakened you or your masculine are. But what we might notice as the separation starts beginning to occur is this trauma bond. Okay, so I'm just going to describe it to you the best way I know how. It's going to be intermittent feelings of happiness mixed with, I guess we could say, sadness, right? Okay. Sadness or loss. Okay, that's what I'm going to say here. Okay, so just bear with me as I like to draw, so bear with me. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so we have this sadness or loss and then happiness, and sadness or loss and then happiness, and sadness or loss and then happiness, and sadness or loss, and on it goes for a long time. Now this really has to do with the twin flames and their perceptions and their own behaviors, which I'll get into in a moment. But I just want to explain this for those of you who haven't been to my channel before, who don't understand the Stockholm Syndrome. The Stockholm Syndrome is where a man kidnapped a woman, and he, against her will, but then also intermittently, pleasured her, as in, so she was tied up and restrained, etc. But he also, made sure that she ate. He also, sexually pleasured her. He also, he did, although it was against her will, he still intermittently gave her happiness. So when we're talking about the twin flame journey, we're talking about the divine masculine giving intermittent happiness to the feminine on most counts, but it can be the other way around, so don't quote me on that. It just depends on your situation. But what happens here is that, let's say we're in the love bombing or the love bubble phase, and we might have the divine masculine saying, I really love you, or I find you so attractive, I find you so sexy, and I can't wait to catch up with you again, let's say. And then what might happen is he might go missing for days on end and not reply to texts or calls, etc., like that. So then the divine feminine would experience this sadness or loss, And then we'd have the happiness again when they come back together and, oh, hey, I've just been busy. And, we might have some excuses in there, but it might take a little while for the divine feminine to realize what's actually going on. Because for many of you, you are in a trauma bond stage with your masculine where you're intermittently feeling happy and then they might go away, or they might promise something and they don't fulfill that promise, and this brings the sadness. Okay, so we have happiness, sadness or loss, happiness, sadness or loss, happiness, sadness or loss. It could go happiness, 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 sadness or loss, depending on the period of time. So, in the initial love bombing or love bubble love phase, we might say that there's this ball of happiness, there's this amazing, future, perhaps, I can't wait to see you again, or, when are we getting married? For some of you, that's happened. Or when are we going on a date? Or when can we get jiggy with it, depending on what it is. Or I can't wait to speak to you again on this particular date, and then it never happens. Okay, so this is part of the separation phase or the semi-separation phase, but I call it the trauma bond phase, and it is stage 4. So go and watch that video, the 14 twin flame stages, if you want to understand what's going on in your journey. Some of them may overlap, but the trauma bond stage is really important because usually the feminine realizes that the thing going on here and occurring for the masculine is this massive show of ego. Okay, and ego is a good thing sometimes, but in the twin flame journey it's not so good, because we're going to see characteristics of selfishness. We're going to see characteristics of we could even say godlike behavior, right? We might even see characteristics of autonomy from the masculine that is so hierarchical, I want to say. It's such in a hierarchy that, he's better than you. His time is more precious than you, right? So we might have such excuses as, I'm busy at work, or I am, busy with family, or I lost my phone. I lost my phone. That's a good one. Okay. Or what else could they say? Ooh. Oh yeah, my family comes first. My family has to come first. Okay. Now, these aren't necessarily bad things. Someone can have autonomy, and someone can be busy at work, and someone can be busy with family. Someone may have lost their phone. Some may, of course, have their family coming first, which is a good thing. But you'll know it because on one hand, there was a love bomb, okay, an extreme love bomb. We might have, love songs or love letters or, future faking or promises. And then when they don't meet up to your expectation, and I know I'm saying your expectation, we're not supposed to have expectations, but as in when they don't meet up to what they said they were going to do, we can see some of these behaviors and these attitudes, Oh, I know I said we were going to talk on Friday, but I lost my phone. Okay. Or, oh yeah, work has been so busy lately that I haven't got around to texting you, or something like that. Okay. So what we're seeing here in the trauma bond usually is ego versus empath. Okay, so the divine feminine usually is the empath, not always. And she experiences all of the pain of the trauma bond, because on one hand she's being, given all of these promises, oh yeah, I can't wait to meet up with you at the concert. I'll see you Friday night. She gets there and her twin flame doesn't show up. Or, oh yeah, when we get married, it's going to be amazing. And then she might ask questions about, if we're going to get married, we're going to need to plan that a little bit. And then there might be some excuses as to why that can't happen. Oh, we're going to need to postpone it. Okay, if they live at a distance from one another, oh, the pandemic, the pandemic is stopping me from coming to see you, or, a million and one different reasons. Okay, so this trauma bond happens. Usually the feminine, who is the empath, will feel all of the loss. Okay, so she's going to feel the loss. She's going to feel the sadness. And then intermittently, she'll feel this happiness as well. Okay, because she really loves the masculine. Okay, so hopefully you can read that because I've got writing on the other side. So she experiences the sadness, the loss, sometimes this intermittent happiness. Okay, and then what did I write there? Yeah, but she loves the masculine, so she lets it slide. She might not let it slide with people who are in her life normally, but with the masculine, she lets it slide, and she says, well, he's the other half of my soul, and so I should allow this to happen. And, maybe he is really busy at work, and maybe he is really, not able to do these things that he said he was going to do. Take gender how it resonates, of course. This isn't a bashing of the masculine, or the gender, actually. So now we understand that we have ego versus empath. Ego versus empath, ego versus empath. And what happens here is that the ego of the unawakened masculine, right, the ego of the unawakened masculine, because, he genuinely does love her and doesn't necessarily realize his behaviors are hurting her at the beginning, right? But this turns the feminine very cold. Okay. It turns the feminine cold, but not only cold, this is where we have stage 5, where the depression and loneliness set in. Depression, loneliness, anxiety, and all of the questioning happens for her. Okay, so the ego of the unawakened masculine, which isn't balanced, pushes the feminine to a point of, a brink of the dark night of the soul. She's depressed, she's anxious, she's lonely, she begins having all these questions. In that love song that he sent to me that says, and I will always love you. She kind of goes, well, hang on a minute. If he always loves me, then why would he ignore me? If he always loves me, why would he behave in a way that hurts me? And she starts wondering, she really starts wondering if he's actually sadistic. And sadistic means getting pleasure from someone's mental, emotional, or physical unwellness. All right? So if someone's being sadistic, they actually get pleasure out of pain of someone else. So she actually starts saying, well, am I dealing with a narcissist? Am I dealing with a sadist? Am I dealing with a psychopath? Am I dealing with someone who actually enjoys hurting me? And a lot of you come to me for counseling and services when you're in the trauma bond stage. This is when you come to me because you're going, hang on a minute. On one hand, we had this amazing sex, or we had this amazing time together, or we spoke every day, okay? And we, I don't know, we were planning for the future. We were going to open a business together, or, you know, he was gonna leave his wife, or I was gonna leave my partner, or whatever it is. We were going to blend our families together, or we were going to at least be friends, you know. So this trauma bond causes a mass of grief in the feminine. It's this feeling of, I actually feel like I'm coming undone. I feel like I've lost my soul. I feel like my heart is going to fall out of my body. And the tears and the depression and the loneliness and the not knowing what to do next actually brings her this massive dark night of the soul, which is stage, which goes into stage 6, where she wants to try and communicate. Okay, so I know I'm only talking about the trauma bond today, but these other stages that are around it, make sure you watch the twin flame video about the 14 stages. But this is where she wants to communicate with him, and she wants to say, hey bucko, what's going on here? I don't understand why you're being so weird. Like, you know, we were supposed to hang out and you never showed up, or, you know, you've got, I don't know, you've got the chimpanzee flu, or you've got, I don't know, whatever you've got the sniffles, or you've got tendonitis, you know. And she doesn't understand. She goes, she needs to communicate here, because she goes, I'm going to turn from an empath into my ego now, because you're kind of pulling the wool over my eyes. Because on one hand, you're being the most beautiful, most loving, wonderful person that ever walked on the earth that I ever met in my whole entire life. And then you're being a jerk off. You're being an asshole. You're being a dickhead. You're actually hurting me, which is sadistic behavior. Okay? Whether he knows that it's sadistic or not isn't the point. But if you continually hurt someone over and over again and knowingly do this, that is sadistic behavior. So what happens to her is she goes, well, hang on a minute. I'm trying to be in my love space. I'm trying to vibrate higher. I'm trying to be a sweetheart. I'm trying to be all of these wonderful things. But if I don't ask him about this, or if I don't call him out about this and communicate with him, it's literally going to drive me crazy. And this is where the unawakened masculine will say, you know, what's the big deal? What on earth is the big deal, divine feminine? He might not say divine feminine, but my phone, I told you that I lost my phone, right? I told you that I had the oriental flu. I told you that my family needed me. I told you that I'd catch up sometime next week. So we get this stringing along, until she gets up the courage to communicate. And what she'll do is she'll either try and stay in her heart space and be a real sweetie and go, hey honey, hey darling, hey sweethearts, can you please explain to me what's going on with you? Is there something I can do to help you out? You know, if it's your family, or, you know, maybe I could send you some I don't know, some YouTube videos all about family or all about how you can feel better. Or she'll call him out. Or she'll say, this isn't working for me. And for some feminines, they get to the point where at this point they can leave the journey. All right? They can start, being separate. Okay. So in this period of where the divine feminine is tossing up her own ego with her own empathy, because it takes some ego to call someone out, right? You need to be a little bit in your ego and call out the bullshit. You need to maybe not call it ego, but assertion. Okay. So she comes to this part of, how much ego or assertion do I want to use versus how much empathy do I want to have for my masculine? She might say, I'm the most understanding woman in the whole world. Take gender, how it resonates, She might just say, I'm so understanding. But this is some bullshit right here, because you don't send me songs, that say, how am I supposed to live without you? Now that I've been loving you so long. And then, not make that lunch appointment with me because your cousin needed advice or something, So she has this tussle in her own mind. Do I tap into my ego, or do I be a sweetie and be really understanding? This empathy can, in the spiritual community, this empathy can go a little bit far, where we say, well, I unconditionally love everyone. I unconditionally love, everyone. But is that really true? Can we unconditionally love, people like Hitler? Can we unconditionally love people who are doing horrible things? It's a bit of a dilemma, and she has a question in her mind. I really love the masculine, but I don't know that I can do this because this behavior just doesn't resonate with me. So it becomes about resonance here. And it's really interesting because at the same time as the masculine is learning to slowly awaken, he's grappling with, especially if she's called him out, he's grappling with, well, maybe I did do the wrong thing. Maybe I should have, spoken to her more. Maybe I should have been a little bit more congruent with who she is. So what happens is, as she calls him out and has to come back into her ego and call him out, he sees a little red flag in his own behavior, but he still looks at her as being toxic because she's changed. The image that he had of her in his mind has changed. Hang on a minute. This beautiful, loving, wonderful, kind, sweet little thing is now saying that I am being XYZ, and he doesn't like it. Okay. Some of the divine masculines have been enabled. Some of the divine masculines have grown up in narcissistic and abusive households. And some of them have been taught that they are entitled and that they can do no wrong. And so when someone calls them out for a behavior, they either go, well, she's just like my mother calling me out for that behavior, or she should be like my mother and love me anyway. So we get this entitlement that comes about for the unawakened masculine, where he says, you know, if she's calling me out, she's a bitch, and she shouldn't be calling me out because, you know, if he had a great mother as opposed to a mother that used to tell him off all the time, it's a lot about the motherly issues here for him. Because he's grown up now, and because he's 18 or older, he feels like he can do whatever he wants to do. A lot of them do whatever they want to do. A lot of them have multiple partners. A lot of them have a drug addiction, alcohol addiction, you know, something toxic in their life that they've chosen, that they would choose over the feminine. Okay? So this becomes about a choice for the masculine at this point. And the feminine at this point of the journey is at a loss. She's like, you know, is he actually trying to hurt me on purpose? And should I communicate with him to try and make things better, or to call him out? So it becomes a real tussle here. Do I call him out? Do I explain to him what he's doing? And some divine feminines actually do call their masculines out, and this causes a longer separation. And or some of the divine feminines do call their masculine out, and the masculine will try to change his behavior. If he's trying to awaken, he will try and change his behavior, but then he usually goes back into the old patterns of, you know, well, I lost my other phone. My mum needed me again. You know, there's a lot of things that happen. So this is my explanation today of the trauma bond in the twin flame journey. It's a really interesting dynamic that happens in stage 4 of the journey. Unless your masculine is completely awakened, you may not go through the trauma bond stage, but that's highly unlikely. Most of you would have gone through some trauma bonding where you have felt really high and then really low, and then really high and then really low, high, low, high, low, high, low, or high, low, or low, high, you know, etc. That could be a song. High, low, it's off to work we go. Instead of hi ho, hi ho. Anyway, don't quote me about that. But what I want you to understand is that I need you to stay in your empath energy here. Okay? And I also need you to see it. Remember we talked the other day about not being a sim. Don't be in the game. Don't think it's happening to you. Come up on the mountain and look at it. And if you need to get a counseling session with me so we can look at the behavior of your masculine, I want to do that with clarity. Because if you're stuck in the trauma bond, you may not be able to look at it with clarity, because you'll be like, well, I love him. And your intuition will be niggling at you going, but I think he's cheating on me. I love him, but I think he's cheating on me. Or I love him, but I think he's lying to me. Or I love him, but I think he's manipulating me. Or I love him, but I think he's fobbing me off in some way. Or I love him, but right? So we want you to stay in empath mode, because we want you to see that his behaviors are toxic if they are toxic. And that's a definite thing we want you to understand and to see. But we also want you to not get into the bitterness mode where, you know, you become a yelling, screaming sim, like the barbecue's caught on fire. Okay. So let's sing. I think my phone's about to go flat. Hang on a second. That might work. Okay, let's sing Joyful, Joyful before we go. If you need help with the trauma bond stage, please get in contact with me, because it's a really icky phase that needs a lot of work. Okay, you have to work through the trauma bonds without scaring your masculine away. Otherwise, you might cause a massive separation if you come into your ego and you go, I hate you and you're a dickhead and all of this stuff, We don't want to be doing that. Okay, let's come into the higher vibration and we're going to sing Joyful, Joyful before we go. As always, ready? Joyful, joyful, Lord, we adore you. God of glory, God of light. Hearts unfold like flowers before him. By the way, what have you done for him lately? Ooh, yeah. What have you done for him lately? Ooh, yeah. I want you to remember, as a divine feminine, no matter what gender you are or where you are in the world, that you are doing a fantastic job and that you are on the right path. And I want you to understand that this is all about having a union with yourself first and foremost before a romantic union, which is, it can be the icing on the cake for the twin flame union. But this is all about coming into union with yourself, okay? That's what we're aiming for in the twin flame journey. So if you need me, my details are below in the description box. Don't forget to watch the 14 stages of the twin flame journey, which is in my Twin Flames, The Real Phenomenon Explained playlist. That's a really, really important video. And I hope you all have a beautiful day, night, afternoon, evening, or morning, wherever you are in the world. And I'm wishing you so much love and so much luck on your twin flame journey today. Bye, everyone. Bye for now.